Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to, well, I guess it's technically episode 2 of my monthly look at Clockwork Empires. I say technically because usually the thing I'm doing now is the first episode, but of course, the first episode was actually my brief intro to Clockwork Empires for all the new people who came in because the game recently entered beta. So what I typically do in these episodes is I talk about kind of like the state of development, and also I go over the latest changes in the patch notes and so on. Now, of course, the most obvious thing is that the game has now entered beta, whereas for the last 2 years, I guess, or 1.5 years, it's been in early access, and before that, it was not yet published to officially published early access, but was in a state that the Gaslamp Games developers referred to as earliest access. So that's one thing. The developers now feel confident that they've completed the lion's share of the back-end coding necessary, and so with the foundation in place, they can begin hooking in systems and adding content. So they decided now would be a good time for the game to enter beta. I mean, it's all a little bit arbitrary, but it signifies that they're more confident in the finished product, and it's a reflection of maybe what customers or potential early access customers might reasonably expect in a product. And believe me, it has come a long, long way since it became sort of publicly available. So, game is in beta. What are the big things that came in with revision 51? Well, the biggest ones are probably the changes to the way workshops function. So if we take a look at my completed carpentry workshop here, for instance, you'll notice it has 3 carpentry modules in it, and each of those modules has an order line in the interface. Now when I queue up things that I want the carpentry to produce, I'll queue them up on a per module basis. I'll still queue them up, maybe I'll move this into the middle of the screen. I'll still pick the things the workshop can make off of the list here. Then I will select whether or not it's to be a permanent standing order or just a one-off. For instance, this order to make cots, just make 4 until 4 are made, and then you're done. Whereas this plank order, make 10, and always make sure that the stockpile has at least 10, that minimum amount in the stockpile, which they have not been doing, as I can see. So that's the new workshop system, and it applies to every workshop that produces goods, which is actually, that's the definition of a workshop. When we look at the types of buildings here, we have workshops, offices, and housing. Workshops are the ones where you build them, and then you click on them, and then you pick their outputs. Offices, on the other hand, are buildings like the barracks and the mine shaft. They produce things, but not because there are inputs. Right? People just go there to work or whatever, and the stuff gets done. But you don't manually pick what their outputs would be. So that's the difference between an office and a workshop, and that's a change to the workshop UI. Another major change is the way stockpiles work. So if we look at, actually this is a bad example because this colony, I know it's kind of hard to tell. This colony is actually on the brink of starvation, despite the plentiful cabbage fields. And that's because in my haste to grow this colony, I grew it a little too ambitiously, and I spread my workforce too thin. And as a result, things got overcrowded, and my food production was strained, and everyone got into a bad mood, which meant everyone works shorter shifts. As we can see, my carpenters are only willing to work 3 shifts out of the 8 shifts that comprise a day, and that's applicable to most of the crews. Anyway, so productivity is way down, everyone was grumpy, and because the farms aren't producing enough food and the kitchen's not cooking enough, people aren't getting enough to eat, and there aren't enough beds because the carpentry can't make them faster than I get immigration, so no one's sleeping either. So I'm hoping I can turn it around. I'll probably end up building more beds and more farms and just concentrating on that for a while. Anyway, back to what I was saying. Stockpiles. There are changes to stockpiles in that things can be stacked. That's not new. Like here's a stack of 2 planks and here's a stack of 2 planks, and then someone will probably come along and stack them into a bigger stack of 4 planks. The new thing is that colonists can now pick up and transport a stack of items. So prior to this patch, prior to this revision, if you had a stack of 7 planks and a project that required 7 planks, that would require 7 trips back and forth from the stockpile to the location, because colonists would only carry 1 at a time. Now, colonists are able to pick up as many as they need from a stack and transport them all at once to their destination. And I'm getting a new overseer, excellent. Yes, so stacks are now a thing. Another new thing, which I guess, just as I was saying, cots are now done, and so that job in the carpentry is complete. And let's queue up some decorative carpets. Just the one for now. Yes. So production is, the end result is that production is considerably more efficient, actually. There's a lot less sort of hauling overhead, which means more stuff gets done. Another new thing, which unfortunately I won't be able to demonstrate for you since I'm just recording this live over an existing save. There's a new event arc system. So occasionally, and maybe you saw at the beginning of the video, I had a little warning on the top right here that said, fish people are approaching. Or occasionally you'll see things like, Collins has heard mysterious whispers in his sleep, and he gets that purple swirl over his head. So that notification system has been combined with the event arc system to provide randomized events that will befall your colony. They include things like the meteor strike, or the mysterious meteor event, and also the fish person idol event, and these are multi-part occurrences. A good example of the way the event arc system is actually the way the new tutorial is implemented in-game. In that, it's a pop-up window. It'll give you a brief list of objectives you might consider completing, and there's a button for you to interact. Either you can just affirm that whatever it is, that's the case, or sometimes it'll give you multiple choice. Treat the fish people aggressively, tolerate their presence, or just give them whatever they want. Multiple choices, all of which unlock further decision trees, right? So that's the event arc system. Hopefully, I'll be able to demonstrate something like that in my playthrough after this episode. So from episode 3 onward, the next couple of episodes will be me just playing through the game, so people can see how it plays. That's the event arc system. Now there's a bunch of not really prominent, I'd say. There've been a bunch of UI tweaks. Pardon me. So if we take a look at the work crew menu, for instance, it collapses into the good old, 1 line per crew. However, let's take a look at Eugenia Sugar, who is in charge of the carpentry. Right, if we expand this, already at first glance, there's a quick note here underneath her portrait, which indicates her best skill and also her proficiency at it. So if we click on her, I'll go over the changes in the character window later. We can see that carpentry is her best skill. In fact, she's an expert at it, and that's reflected in the character window. So that's true of every work crew. That's kind of weird. Yep. That guy's hunger icon was showing through the work crew menu. Yes. So at a glance now, you can see which overseers are best suited for what types of jobs, which is very convenient when you've just built a workshop and you're wondering which overseer you should assign there. You can open the work crew menu and look at it that way, or if you look at the middle of the barracks window I have open here, if I pop open the list of all eligible overseers, you can see beside their names, again, we have the same notation, best skill and proficiency. That's it. And 2 new colonists. Excellent. Yep, I'll just accept those. So just a convenient little UI tweak, which just puts the information where you need it. Other UI changes, you can see. Well, I guess we've already gone over the workshop UI changes. If we go back to the character pane changes, you can see that some of the windows have been shifted around. Desires have been I have exceeded 30 colonists, and the ministry is sending me a gold bar. Great. There it is. I'm fortunate in that it did not crush any of my colonists, given that I have not built an airship mast. The airship mast basically it designates a landing zone for all airdropped supplies. So you can reasonably expect them to fall around the mast. If you don't build a mast, it will just fall somewhere in your colony where there might be people. I should probably assign these workers. Well, let's get you one here and one here. Good enough. Yep, that's a notification. Okay, so back to the character pane. So for those of you who have played previous versions, you'll notice that desires no longer appear in here. Now they've been temporarily removed. The devs say it is temporary and they'll probably be back in one form or another. But right now, we can. An overseer's mood is strongly dictated by basically these 5 areas. First of all, health is no longer a red health bar. It's actually a series of hearts, which I guess it's a little more intuitive. Also, so quality of life. Here's how it works. It's broken into 5 categories, and their treatment, or their experience in these 5 categories, determines all of them either increase or decrease these 4 emotions: happiness, despair, anger, and fear. So if you mouse over each quality of life icon, you can see their most recent experience in that category. Unfortunately, Eugenia is sleeping very poorly. Where are you? She's not sleeping anymore. And if you mouse over each emotion, you can see what is affecting, basically the effects of the environment on that particular emotion. And we can see that if we look, why is she so angry? Well, it's broken down into, man, she is very angry. This colony is not going well. Basically, the greatest influence on her increased anger is that she is tortured by hunger. She's very, very, very hungry. And as I mentioned, that's a problem for a number of reasons, but the food production issues stem from basically accepting immigration too quickly this time, and not setting up my farming infrastructure fast enough before I started expanding. Yeah, so anyway, those are some handy-dandy changes to the UI. As always, there have been a bunch of smaller changes under the hood, and particularly so, this was a very big patch, right? This is a very big revision, the jump from 50 to 51. Some of the event arcs are the Fishy Idol event. There's a foreign invasion event arc now. I mentioned the meteor shower arc, and then there's a bunch of. Oh, I made a carpet. Let's get that carpet placed. So I'm going to the modules menu. There's decor, ostentatious carpet. I think I'm best served putting it in a place where people sleep a lot, so that the quality of their sleep will be good, and hopefully that will influence their mood. All right, there's a bunch of beds here in the trade office. Yes, I know that's kind of weird, but I needed a building and I needed a place to put these beds. Oh, someone has discovered supplies. Excellent. Yes. As always, there have been a bunch of optimizations and tweaks and balance passes. Bugs have been squashed, and I'm sure a whole host of new bugs has been introduced. The thing of it is, it's a game in beta, and it's a game in early access, and we're seeing a whole bunch of new players coming to the game with new experiences and new expectations because the game is now in beta, all of which the devs are, they're glad to hear, and it's keeping them busy. And for those of us who've been playing from early access to now, there's some sort of design concessions that we're just kind of used to because we've been playing so long, and we don't notice them anymore. So it's nice to have a fresh pair of eyes on the game, right? And tell us things you might have forgotten are commonly accepted in completed games, like the ability to pause when you hit the escape key, which, for instance, the game does not currently support, but I've been assured it's in the works. right? That's something someone who's coming to the game fresh might reasonably expect. Now, in the time since the game hit 51, which was, I believe, just this Friday, or it might actually have been Saturday just passed. So it's been about a week, or it's been about 5 days now. The game has seen 2 hotfixes, both published to the main branch. So if you look at the top right here, you can see that the version that's playing right now is Beta 51B. And when it entered beta, it was just Beta 51. So there was an A, and then there was a B in these 2 hotfixes in the last 5 days or so, primarily aimed at crushing some commonly encountered bugs. And from this point forward, there will be experimental patches up until whatever the next stable branch releases. Yeah, so that's where the game is now. Reasonably stable. I don't think there are any prominent game-breaking bugs. The eagle-eyed viewers among you may recognize this colony as the one I had playing in the background of my episode 1, expanded a little bit. I'm playing in the... what is this? Which biome is this? The boreal forest biome, which I find is actually probably the easiest biome to establish your colony on, because there's typically a great abundance of rock and a great abundance of trees, which it's a little bit scarce on forageable food, so it is important that you get your farming up and running quickly. And of course, the only food crop that you can grow in the Borean tundra is cabbage, which is okay, but it's not the most efficient food compared to the other crop types. So that's just something you need to consider. But if you're looking for a relatively easy start, the Boreal Tundra is a good one. Compared to something like... sorry, not the Boreal Tundra, the Boreal Forest. The Tundra is an awful place to start, because there is next to no food and next to no wood. So, that's my quickie look at episode 50, or sorry, at Beta 51B. This has been my episode 2. And then I'm going to start a colony afresh for episode 3 of this series, and we'll just play through for the next couple of episodes, just so you can get a feel for how the game plays. I take a look at the game like this about once a month whenever a new stable branch release hits Steam. If for some reason you're watching episode 2 here without having watched episode 1, I would encourage you to go back and watch that one. That's a much better introductory episode. Otherwise, well, thanks for watching. My name's Alfred. The game is Clockwork Empires. It's being developed by Gaslamp Games. It's available on Steam. It is in early access, just having entered beta. It is also available through the Humble Store, or you can purchase it directly through the Gaslamp Games website. Since we probably have a bunch of new people to the game, feel free to come by to the forums, which are always quite active, and the devs themselves frequent the forums. Or the Steam discussion groups, they're pretty active there as well. And, report your bugs, share your playthrough experiences, that sort of thing. Otherwise, thanks very much for watching. I hope this has been informative. I will see you next episode.